In a small island in Korea, there is a man who is the tallest fighter in the world. He's so big and tall that he makes other gigantic fighters look small. This giant's name is Man Choi. He is so tall that the fans call him the Korean Goliath. The Korean Goliath is a staggering 2 meters and 18 centimeters tall. He even weighs up to 385 pounds. Now, how did he get this tall, and how did he do as a fighter? At a young age, Choi developed a tumour in his brain which gave him a condition called gigantism. This caused him to grow past regular height and become disproportionate in size, which gave him a huge forehead, allowing him to take hard punches. Now, you might think this is a curse, but he's a superstar in Korea and the ladies absolutely love him. Choi is known as a gentle giant and he even raps. But most importantly, throughout his career, the Korean Goliath fought over 31 times. Yes, he fought with some of the very best fighters in history, defeating some no less. Fight fans, welcome back to another episode of Lawrence Kenshin Striking Breakdowns. In this episode, we feature the Korean Goliath, Man Choi. The Korean giant was not initially a full contact fighter. He began in combat sports as a wrestler. In the style of Shirim, the Korean version of sumo wrestling, he won the 2003 championships. In this sport, several athletes were as big as him. In professional fighting, however, he was the tallest and biggest. For obvious reasons, his style mostly relied on his size and strength. Despite not having the cleanest technique, Choi was quite athletic from his time as a wrestler. Even the greatest of all time, Fedor Emelianenko, had real trouble grappling with him. Every time Fedor tried to take down the Korean giant, he landed on his back, a rare sight for the Sambo world champion. When he was in shape, Choi walked around at 375 pounds of muscle. This allowed him to defeat one of the biggest heavyweight kickboxers of all time, the 5-time K1 World Grand Prix champion Semi Shield. Although Choi was never the best fighter, his fights were always a joy to watch. When he fought Bob the Beast Sapp in his prime, it was like watching King Kong vs Godzilla. With each push kick, Sapp, who is a 330-pound man himself, would get sent flying across the ring. And here's the thing, Choi wasn't just big and strong, he was also very tough. When Sapp swung at Choi, he put his hands up to tell him to bring it on. When he gets hit, the Korean giant simply smiles. Now, isn't that scary? Throughout this fight, he landed good knees. One even rocked the beast. Although this fight was full of slapping punches, it was still a very fun fight where two of the biggest fighters in history went to war. Against Fedor Emelianenko, the greatest heavyweight MMA fighter of all time, the Korean giant made him look like a child in grappling exchanges. When Fedor tried to take down Choi, it was Choi who took down Fedor. However, because Choi is not a skilled grappler, Fedor was able to easily trap his arm and transition into an armbar. In an iconic moment, Choi lifted Fedor into the air as he tried to finish the armbar. Surprisingly, Choi was able to brute strength his way out of the armbar and went back to smashing Fedor with ground and pound. When they reset and Fedor tried to take down the giant, he once again got reversed into the ground. But when Choi opened up and went for ground and pound, Fedor was able to trap his forearm this time and go into the armbar once again. This time, Choi couldn't muscle out of the tight lock and was finished. Had Choi been better prepared in grappling, there was a good chance for him to give Fedor a lot more trouble. This is particularly showcased by this next fight. The Korean giant fought many of the greatest fighters in combat sports history, but his greatest accomplishment is defeating Semi Shield. Shield is widely considered one of the greatest kickboxing champions of all time. To everyone's surprise, Choi was able to defend most of Shield's attacks very well. In many moments, he out-jabbed the Dutch giant and even landed his own combinations. Most of Shield's usual tactics, which works against the best heavyweights, simply did not work against Choi. After defending Shield's attacks well, Choi was even able to press the Dutch giant to the ropes and unleash combinations multiple times. When they traded swings, Choi often got the better of the exchanges. Many times the Dutch giant ran away from the Korean giant and cowered when the punches came, a testament to how hard Choi punches even without technique. This historic fight is excellent for showcasing that styles absolutely makes fights. In the end, the Korean giant got his arm raised in victory, showing that size can overcome skill. No, Man Choi was not the best fighter in the world, but by being the biggest and having heart, he could beat some of the best fighters in the world. From knocking down Badahari to defeating Semi Shields, Choi deserves respect for stepping up in the ring against the very best. He was as tough as anyone, and in fights, he was always pressuring forward even if his opponent was a skilled giant. His gentle demeanour made him a great media personality, and we can see why the supermodels love him despite not being the most handsome. What are your thoughts on Man Choi? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support us is by watching another one. I'm Lawrence Kenshin, and thank you for keeping our channel alive.